All right, so I want to welcome everybody tonight to tonight's Salt Talks. Tonight we're going to talk about what is a provider. As a parent, learning about providers, it was one of those things you just didn't use in your everyday life, coming up through with school and everything. And suddenly you had this word provider. And it was like, well, what does that mean and who are they? And it took me a little bit to sort out that information and who they are and how they helped us and what kind of role did they play for us. So tonight we have several people here representing provider groups, and we have it set up like a panel. And what we're gonna do is open up and let each one introduce themselves and who they work for, their organizations. I don't know if parents, if you have a note, I always have a tablet and a pencil nearby. It's helpful to write these, write the different informations down, the different things that are provided. We also have tonight, I have Andrea Harker. She's with the Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities. She's going to MC that. She's with the employment part of the Montgomery County Board of DD. She helps with people with employment and after school and SSA department. So I want to be able to let her also MC because she's been involved with these providers and knows a lot of the questions that parents have come back to her with. I know my questions, but she's also been experienced with many questions. So Andrea, I'm going to let you start and then just go ahead and introduce. You can start with Gina then after you introduce yourself.
Okay, great. My name is Andrea Harker. I'm a school to work employment specialist for Montgomery County Board of DDS. I've been with the county 19 years. I have had several roles being an SSA, LD, and my job was created due to employment first. I work primarily with a lot of high school kids who are interested in gaining work in the community, and I work quite a bit with OOD, and we kind of work together as a team to make sure that leave high school or they are employed, that they're still working with OOD and our employment navigator. But that is something that we can talk about later on. So if it's okay with you, Gina, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and go ahead and start talking and everything, okay?
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, so I am Gina Lopresti and I work at Matrix, just like the movie Matrix. And my program is called Workforce Services. And that is the division in Matrix that serves OOD. And I am the director, but I also carry caseload. And I do that because I love it so much and I'm passionate about it. And I just can't not do it. So it's pretty untypical. Usually the director, the person who's overseeing the staff and running the program, will not carry a caseload, but I do because, like I said, I'm passionate about it. All of our managers do, all of our supervisors in the program do. And we do that because of our passion and also because we think it is very helpful for us to be providing those services and supervising staff that are providing those services, because we actually, have our hands in it and we're doing it, so we kind of understand what's going on, and it allows us to provide really good supervision to those that we are providing that supervision to.
Gina, can I ask a question really quick? Just so making sure everybody's understanding everything. Can you tell me what services that Matrix provides?
Sure. So we provide supported employment services. So those are going to be the services that kind of collaborate between DD and OOD. And we provide vocational evaluations, regular job placement services, community-based assessments. We're trying to get a little bit into the pre-ET services, but we are not doing that currently. We still need to get our curriculum approved and do some things to be able to do that. And we do not provide the summer youth services. However, we can provide job placement services that can help an individual find summer employment or start out finding their first job. And we do work with students. We work with different school systems, and we actually provide services across the state. So not just in Dayton or Cincinnati, but all across the state of Ohio, and a little bit of services in Pennsylvania also. So, and we provide travel training, job coaching. We do some computer training in case somebody needs some assistance with up services, which is something that OOD offers, so that those services are designed to teach an individual basically how to get started with using their computer to for job search purposes. Now, most students are probably, you know, they were born kind of with the computer. They're probably not going to need that as much, but they may need some assistance with understanding how to set up maybe an email account, or some of the search engines that we use for job search. So there can be a little bit of that, but I think typically with younger individuals, they're not going to need that as much. And then we can provide some bridge services, which can help with any kind of service that somebody needs, basically to, if they needed assistance with, I don't know, getting work clothes or making sure driver's license, that they understand how to do all that. We also provide tutoring services. So we can help individuals with, the popular one that we do under our tutoring services would be helping individuals get their temporary license. So, and we've had great success with that. We have individuals across the state that can do that. And we've had a lot of good success with that, because asking for a little bit of accommodations and just help, having a little bit of extra support with that seems to go a long way with some of the younger individuals that we're serving.
Okay, Gina, that's a lot of great information. I know we have a variety of parents on here and just a variety of providers as well. Do you guys ever provide any in-home services or any assistance with transportation?
Oh, why did that happen? Can you guys still hear me? Oh,
Yes.
I don't know what happened there. It all just went black for a second. I don't know if that happened for you guys. Oh gosh, sorry about that. So no, we do not provide transportation, but what we do is travel training, and we can assist with helping an individual figure out how they're going to be able to, in the long run, get back and forth from work. Normally,
Okay.
that's going to be a little bit more important, because while you can provide transportation while the person is in services with OOD, we need something to be in place for the long run so that that individual can get back and forth to work even after we're out of the picture.
Okay, that's good
And no
information.
in-home services. So I think I'm not sure entirely what in-home services would involve. And I think that if we did them, I'd know what they were. So I'm going to go with no on that.
Okay. So I'm curious, Gina, when you start working with people or adults or whatever that would like to use your services, how do parents or individuals reach out to your agency to start these services? I know I work with a lot of parents that are like, I'm not sure how to choose a provider. And I guess I'm curious, when people are coming to you, have they shared with you how they chose you or chose Matrix?
Normally what will happen is sometimes there are individuals that basically did a Google search and they might end up identifying us that way, although I think that's kind of very least typical. Sometimes they will get that information because maybe they knew another parent and that parent's child or cousin or whomever receive services from us, so they might reach out that way. But the most typical way would be that they already were referred to OOD, because they need to do that first, because they go through OOD and then they get referred back to us as the provider. And so normally what will happen is their vocational counselor will have given them kind of a list of providers and ask them to call to do interviews. And then they'll call and I'll just talk to them, maybe see what they're looking for in particular for their particular person that they're thinking of having come to us, and just providing general information regarding myself, workforce services, and Matrix, and how we do things.
Okay. Do you have any questions that parents ask you that you find are beneficial or not beneficial when searching for a provider?
You know what? And I think every question is beneficial, because I think if somebody's got it on their mind, they should ask it so that they can get information about it. And what I notice is that when parents are new to this, it is overwhelming. There's just a lot to it, especially like if you have somebody who is receiving services from more than one person. Maybe they have a psychologist or psychiatrist that they're working with. Maybe they have a medical doctor. Maybe they have someone from OOD that they're connected to, and then they might have somebody from DD that they're connected to. And when it's new, it's super overwhelming. And sometimes they just don't know where to get started, or they don't understand the process. So basically what I tell people who call me is, I've been doing this for 30 years. So I'm really well versed with it. And all of the years that I've done it, I've worked with OOD. So normally I tell people, you just call me if you have a question. And even if you're not going to pick Matrix as a provider, you can still call me and I'll help you, because I know that it's overwhelming, and I want for people to understand that they have someone they could reach out to try to help them sort through it all. So that's a lot of times what we'll talk about. And then sometimes they'll ask specific questions like, well, how does the process work? Or do you actually help people find jobs that are in this particular area, or who have this particular disability? And like, what is your success rate? Or what kind of credentials does your team have? So it's kind of any question that can help the person get clarity. And a lot of times the person will call me and say, gosh, I just know that I was supposed to call and talk to you as a provider, but I don't even know what to ask you. So then, we just act like we're sitting down having some tea, and we just talk and we answer questions. And I just kind of give people the scoop and give them a little information. And then normally from there, sometimes that's going to lead to a question that they might have, or more kind of dialogue that goes between us.
Okay, that's a lot of good information. So Gina, do you by chance have a website or any information everybody could take home with them today that you could maybe put in the chat box?
You know what? I can actually, probably what I can do, we have a super swanky thing at Matrix that is untypical. I don't think most providers have this. And our super swanky thing that we have is two things, actually. One, we have a newsletter that we send out every quarter. And we send that newsletter out to the OOD counselors who are referring to us. And contained in that newsletter is some information that's called Did You Know? And it just gives a little update on things that are happening within Matrix. And then the body of that newsletter has success stories that happen across the state, so people can get an idea of who we're working with, where we've placed them, what kind of earnings they've had. It's just a good way to get familiar with Matrix, I think. And then the other thing we have are staff bios. And our staff bios have our picture. They have a little information that kind of gets you to personally know us a little bit, like our favorite quote, our favorite color, different things like that. And then on the other side of the page, it's got information that's more statistically oriented, such as how long we've been in the field, what kind of degrees that we have, what our specialty areas are, if we have any. So what I can do is I can put my email address in here, and anybody who would want those bios or that newsletter, they can just email me and I'll go ahead and send them out to you all so that you can have them, because that's a really great way to get to know what we do at Matrix, I think. And it's also nice because that's something that you can print and you can have like in front of you in case maybe you want to go talk to the case manager or the doctor or your uncle, or you and your husband want to sit down and talk about it. You could have something in front of you that you could be looking at that could kind of drum up discussion as to whether Matrix would be the place to go for help.
Okay, well, thank you, Gina. If you can just to put that in our chat box, that would be great. I just want to open it up to Patty and Dave Sullivan. Dave, do you yourself, and do you have anything you would like to add to some things that Gina is talking about?
Sure, thank you. So, hi, everybody. Yes, as she talked about the process of when you have a high school student that's approaching graduation and they have a disability and you're trying to figure out next steps, and the human service system is huge and it's confusing. It can be overwhelming. So it's really good to see people on the call tonight and learning. And that's really what this is all about. And we recommend that. You heard them talk about OOD a little bit. And I want to say that's who I represent. OOD is Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. And we're a state agency that has vocational counselors that work with eligible students with disabilities. And the counselors will help coordinate services. And we're also a funding agency, so we can pay for these services that they're talking about tonight. And the idea is to really try to become familiar with these different providers and what they can offer. And that's going to help you with your decision making. I don't want to take too much time from the different speakers, but maybe a little later on I can touch on some of those services. And if we have time, we can come back to that.
Sounds great. Thank you, Dave. Anything else,
Yep.
Patty, before we go on to our next speaker?
No, I think she covered it very well. And I see she put her email there into the chat. Thank you for doing that. And Dave, I don't know if you want to include your email. I can put it in for you if you'd like.
Sure, that would be fine.
So as we're going through this, as you think of questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box so we make sure we address your questions. Remember each provider is a different, each provider here is a different organization or a different company being represented. And it's just giving you an idea of their services, who they are. So as we're going through and listening to this, thinking about your son or daughter, their employment experience, or possibly their employment experience, and what are you looking for in like supports? Maybe a question will come up along those lines too, but feel free to put your comments in the chat box or any questions.
And can I just say that when I first put my email address in there, ignore that first one, look at the second one. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you, Gina. And thank you again for presenting and talking with us about Matrix. We appreciate it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so how about we go ahead and start our next session with Miss Liz Purvis from Goodwill.
I had to unmute, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, so I am Liz Purvis. I am from Goodwill Easter Seals, Miami Valley. I have been with Goodwill for 17 years now. And like Gina, we do a lot of the same services that Gina stated. We do the supported employment, voc evals, community-based assessments. We do have summer youth program getting ready to start up here in the next couple months. We have placement services. We are doing pre-ETs. We're just short one of those courses, which is the counseling and post-secondary, but we are working on that. So we hope to have that one up and running by April. So we do the travel training. We do have some computer classes, cashier training, customer service training. We have the bridge supports. We do also, like Gina said, we do short-term transportation while they're in services until they can get transportation, other transportation set up. We do job coaching.
I'm going to stop you for just a second, Liz. You mentioned job coaching.
Yes.
I know a lot of times when I am talking with different parents or people have questions like, what exactly is job coaching and how long does it last? Is that something you could touch upon?
Yeah. So job coaching is when an individual gets a job, we will go with them day one. We can go with them to their orientation. And every individual is going to be different. So as far as how long we stay with them, it could be 2 days, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. So we're there to help them learn the job. We're also there to help the employer learn how to work with that individual, because everybody learns different. So we're there to help them learn the job and the employer learn how to work with the individual. But yeah, so we will start to fade out once they're kind of getting the hang of things. And again, that's where it could, it could be 2 weeks, but it could be 2 months. It just kind of depends on the individual.
Okay, thank you, Liz. I know I get a lot of questions from parents about that, so thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm curious, do you get a lot of phone calls or emails from parents, trying to possibly look at you being a provider?
I have here lately, but it's mostly been for the pre-ETS services.
Okay.
The counselors are,
Mhm.
giving out individual or vendors' names, providers' names, and they're calling and asking questions so they can pick who they would like to go with. Usually, like for say job coaching, they're already with a provider for their job development, and they kind of tend to continue with that provider for the job coaching. So with the job coaching, not so much. We don't usually get calls for that so often, but sometimes we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you ever worked with anybody, Liz, where maybe it's not been a good fit, whether it be job development, job coaching, supported employment, where maybe you're feeling like Goodwill as a whole may not be the best fit for this individual? If you've had a situation like that, how do you work with the whole team to work through that?
I can't say that Goodwill as the whole maybe wasn't a good fit, because we do have a lot of different job coaches and just different job developers. So if maybe they're not meshing job developer and consumer, or job coach and consumer, we can meet as a team and maybe find a different developer or different coach that might be a better match.
Okay.
Because everybody is not always good matches, right? Personalities don't always mesh. So sometimes we, especially for coaches, once the job developer knows the individual, we try to figure out who might be the best coach for that person.
Okay.
So we do try to take that into consideration.
Okay, great. Hold on just a second here, Liz. Gina would like to say something. Can you unmute yourself,
you're on
Gina?
mute.
I just wanted to say 2 things. One, I wanted to roll back to that job coaching question, because there are actually some individuals that would need job coaching, but it might not be on site.
Yep, correct.
There could be some, I guess you'd say, highly intelligent individuals that don't need someone to stand next to them to show them how to do their job, but they might need help with like social interaction or anxiety that they might have. So sometimes we can either meet offsite or do that telephonically, or separate from them being on the site, because sometimes, especially with like young individuals, anybody could sometimes be embarrassed because they don't want to have that person standing next to them. So that's something that is actually tailored to that individual. And I know Liz does that at Goodwill also. So that's something she could do there, and probably any other providers could do. And then when you asked a question about the fit for services, I always tell people that when you're shopping for a provider, it's like shopping for shoes.
Try them on.
Yeah, like I could have the same pair of shoes that Liz could have, and Liz could be saying to me, oh my God, these are the most comfortable shoes and I love them and I could walk like 10 miles in them and I never have any problems. I could try that same lovely pair of shoes on and be like, girl, I could not even walk around the block in these shoes because they're just not comfortable for my feet. The shoes are still pretty. The shoes are still good. They just might not be good for my feet. So I have to find a different pair that works better for my feet. So that's kind of the approach that we take at Matrix. And it is often the case where it's not Matrix or Goodwill as the whole. It could be, it's more like really that shoe fit with that actual person. And sometimes it could also be a circumstance where if a Voc specialist has worked with someone for a long time and we're kind of getting stale with what we're doing, like we're not helping the person find that job, not from any fault of that individual or the Voc specialist, but we just kind of exhausted everything. Sometimes we could make the shift to a different staff person to get a different perspective or a different viewpoint, or maybe that staff person has some more contacts. Or I might even say, okay, you know what? You've worked with Matrix for a while and I really want your son or daughter to get a job and we've tried everything. And maybe we should think about like switching over to Liz, because maybe Liz at Goodwill has just a couple more employers that I'm not really familiar with that she has some good relationships with. So at Matrix, we tend to think of it as, you know, it takes a community to make this work. It takes a team. And if Matrix doesn't have the solution, we're happy to either switch that individual that we're working with or suggest that maybe they go to somebody else to work with them to see if that fresh perspective would help out.
Yeah, thank you, Gina, for touching upon this, and you too, Liz, because that was something I wanted to bring up that I know I have questions about, and I'm sure Dave, his counselors and himself, he has been asked. You get a lot of parents out there or guardians that are like, you know what? I just really don't think this provider is the best fit who we thought. We would like to switch a different provider. You know, Liz, how is that something you've handled when you feel like maybe things aren't going well? How do you handle that situation if somebody's not happy with a provider?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, you know, we definitely want to make them happy and we're willing to sit down and talk with them and talk to their OOD counselor and make that happen for them, because it's really about their wants and needs and getting them the job they want, getting them out there and getting them a job.
So Liz, what do you find could be one of the biggest questions a parent or a guardian may ask as they are searching for providers? Do you feel that parents are looking at, hey, what is your placement status? Hey, how many people do you have? Maybe looking, how many job developers do you have? Or how many openings do you have in employment? I mean, what are some questions possibly that you feel like you are asked quite a bit? And after that, you answer, I have a question. Go ahead, Liz.
Okay. So for me, I don't do so much in placement. I'm over job coaching. So I don't usually get the placement questions, but I will get like the job coaching questions. Or like I said, the assessment questions. So if we're trying to set up an assessment, though, they will ask questions like, can you set up at this site? Or, you know, can you do a library? Or can you do, not a bank? People don't usually ask about banks, but they will ask about certain sites. And we definitely try to accommodate them and make it at a site that is something they're interested in, not just a Goodwill store, you know, because sure, we have access to Goodwill stores, but not everybody wants to work at a Goodwill store. We want it to be something that they're interested in and that is going to meet their goals.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Dave, do you have anything you want to say? I noticed you unmuted yourself before I take a question.
I don't think so. I don't want people to walk away with the impression that this thing of not having a good fit happens often, because it doesn't.
Right.
It's just something that doesn't occur very often, and probably a good place to start if you have concerns about that would be to talk to their OOD counselor. And usually what they're going to do is try to work with you and that provider to see what the problems are and work them out. versus, looking for a different option or something. But yeah, it just doesn't happen all that often. So.
Now, I didn't think it does happen often, but there are times, maybe once in a blue moon, you'll get a phone call from somebody and it's like, okay, that's kind of shocking, but it's always good to know what to do in case something like that happens. But I do agree, Dave, it's very rare something like that happens. So thank you for reiterating this.
Sure.
And I do want to take a question that came in from Mary. My son has had a job for years, and he has someone check in with him once a month. Could you step in and help if his contact person is not working? So, it looks like Gina said, absolutely, we could do that. Liz, is there anything you want to chime into that too?
So I'm guessing that the person that's checking in once a month is a DD follow along retention specialist.
Is that correct, Mary?
Okay.
Liz, is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or anything with Goodwill or in your role, or any of the other roles as far as being a provider at Goodwill, or anything in general?
I will kind of expand a little bit on what Mary talked about. So we do also offer those long-term services. So when an individual is done with coaching services through OOD, which is usually 90 days. Well, I'm sorry, let me take that back. When coaching is done, they get follow-along services through OOD for 90 days. But then when that follow-along service is completed and they're successful, their OOD case will be closed. But if they have services through the county board, then they could get the follow-along services, where we do also provide those services should they want those services. Then we do the follow-along services through DD funding, and that is typically the once a month check-in. So we do also provide those services.
Right. And if there's anybody in the session right now that is involved with the Montgomery County Board of DDS, you have either an S and an employment navigator. If you don't have an employment navigator, you may be working with me. I'm the school development specialist. But when you have that, something like that, it's very important to reach out to your employment navigator so that they can kind of work with you to get things like that figured out. So Liz, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, so Patty, is there anything you want to chime in to say before we go on to our next guest speaker?
I think everything was pretty much said, but to the parents, as an experience, from what I experienced, if we would have like an issue or a question or something, it's usually a communication issue or something, along those lines. I always, you have an employment team. Last week. Time's flying. Last week we talked about the employment network, how to create that employment network. We had and we spoke about that team, that employment team. And that's why it's that I was trying to stress, have that team so that you can work through difficulties. Just to back up a little bit, there was the point of, maybe, a coach will, maybe you don't need a coach, just right there all the time. The child, your child knows their job, and that's happened with us. He learns his job. He knew his job. He doesn't want anybody standing like hovering over him. But we needed that coach. What we needed that coach for was because speech sometimes is an issue, or communication to the supervisor of the store or wherever he's working. Maybe a coworker, there was like maybe an issue between, because of communication between another coworker, things like that might come up. And that's where that job coach that maybe is not there every day for a job, or every, several times for a specific position, but maybe there as a help or a guide to those areas of difficulty for your individual in the employment field. I hope I said that right. But
you did. Thank you, Patty.
Mhm.
I think we're going to go ahead right now and introduce Hope with capabilities. Again, as always, please put your in the chat box. Try to observe them as we're talking. So Hope, I'll let you go ahead and make your introduction again and talk about your role with capabilities and what all you guys provide.
Great. Yeah, so I'm Hope Gagline. I'm with Capabilities, the branch manager over at the Dayton office. We actually have 12 different offices all throughout the state of Ohio. Capabilities just celebrated their 25-year anniversary. I do kind of have to brag a little bit too. We just had our CARF review, which allows us to work with people with disabilities. And we got a 0 recommendations from CARF, which is what the top 1% of providers get that. So thank you so much. Yes, we're very proud of that. So top 1% of providers in the United States get that rating. So definitely have to brag about that a little bit, but people are welcome to call us, email. I know that there are some students who maybe have hearing impairments. We want to do email. That's fine. I've set up Google Meets before, Zoom meetings, just like this. Really whatever's most for you guys to learn more about capabilities. I know Dave and Andrea are going to go into how to get into services with us going through them. So again, any type of communication or meeting that you want to have, just definitely reach out to me. I'll put my contact information after I kind of go through my spiel here. Just to kind of go through the services that we offer. This isn't in any particular order or anything. We do offer career exploration, and it is exactly what it says. It's exploring different careers. Maybe your student is not sure about what they want to do. We have, that's exactly what the service is for, to figure out what does your student want to do. We have them take, some of them take the Myers-Briggs assessment, if any of you are familiar with that. We also have other assessments for job matches as well that we have them take. We go out to employers and we do informational interviews, just to kind of get out there and see what types of places that your student would like to work at. Another service that we do is very popular, driving services. Everybody wants to learn how to drive. Everybody wants to get their permits. So we definitely help with that. We help study to take the permit test. So I always tell all the students, it's all about learning how to take the test, because it's all it's worded in a weird kind of way where you have to just kind of learn how to take the test. And we also do driving assessments. The assessment is very light. It's just kind of sitting in the car, seeing if the person will feel comfortable driving, if that's a good fit for them or not. And then we also have driver's ed consultants that actually are certified through the state. They have the driver's ed car, and then they help you get your hours in. They help you learn how to drive. They help you learn the maneuverability portion. We actually have company cars at Capabilities that are just specifically the driving cars. So they have, the extra brake on the right-hand side for the passenger, so that the student can learn how to drive. So that is another service. We can actually take them to the testing site. They can use the Capabilities car. The only thing we can't do is obviously when they take the test is go actually in the car, with them, unfortunately, which is good. And same with when they're taking the test to get their permits. We can help set up accommodations for that, but we're not, necessarily allowed to, sit there and actually take the test with them, unfortunately. We also, just kind of like Liz and Gina were talking about, we all kind of provide the same services, just different provider. So community-based assessments, again, as they were talking about, this is just it's almost like a job trial, right? To see what's going to be a good fit for your student. What type of places do they want to work at? We had somebody recently just do a community-based assessment over at Roosters. They did the dishes, they did busing, and they realized, oh my gosh, I love this. This is like exactly what I want to do. I want to get a job doing this. And so that's kind of why we do that, to see, okay, is this something that this person's going to love, or is this just not the right fit whatsoever and we need to go a different direction? Another thing we do is cash register training. So if you do have a student that knows how to count money, maybe it's not their strong suit, we do have, kind of lessons on how to go about doing that. We have a little computer, we have a little scanner. We do, scenarios of what to do when an angry customer comes up, all that kind of thing for, and then of course, practicing the counting the money as well for the cash register. We also do computer training. I would say it's probably a little bit lighter than maybe what Liz does over at Goodwill, but we do, go over like Word, Excel, the Microsoft suite. We have laptops available for rent. And, the student can just learn, how do we navigate the computer? We are in a technology world. Obviously, we're all right here in a Zoom meeting on, in the evening. We're all full of that. So really learning that and learning how to do Google Meets, learning how to do Zoom, especially for interviewing, when it comes to that time too. All that's really important. So we do have some lessons as well that we go through for computer training. We have, of course, employment services. So finding a job development, supportive employment, I know people have been calling it. So that is, helping the person build a resume. That's kind of the first step there, right? Is to build a resume with build references. Even if, the student doesn't have any work history, let's talk about what are some volunteer work stuff. We can do a skills-based resume where we talk about different skills that the student has done, even if they don't have any work experience. So all, different variety of that. We talk about, beforehand, how do we talk to employers? How do we interview? What do we say? What do we not say? Mock interviewing, all the job readiness stuff that kind of comes with that piece. And then of course, doing the applications. We can do the applications for the student, of course, with them present with us, but if you don't have someone that's tech savvy, doesn't really know how to fill out an application, that's what the job developer is there for. They can help them fill out the application and help with the assessment. The great thing I think about what capabilities, in particular job developers, are great about making those connections out in the community. So they're really good about, hey, let's talk to this employer first before we even do an application. Let's see if this is even going to be worth our time here, because we don't want to just be throwing applications and stuff out there and then get an interview and then it's not the right fit. So I always say good job development is getting a person a job before they even do the application. So just making those connections with employers, sitting in on interviews with them if they need help with that. Most of the people that we work with really like for the job developer to sit in on the interview with your students. So we can definitely do that. If your student is independent, they don't want that, we can always just have the job developer take them to the interview, drive them there, and just give them that support from the background. And then of course, once your student gets a job, we have job coaching, which I know we've touched on already as well. So that is really helping the student learn the job. And like they were saying, it could be in a variety of different ways. So it could be on-site training with them. It could be in the background doing phone calls, doing Zoom calls to check in. It could just be, maybe the employer doesn't allow job coaches on site. Maybe we can do a Zoom meeting with the employer and a Zoom meeting with the student. Say, hey, how are things going? Let's check in. We have had it where we've had a job coach actually Google Meet in to somebody working because they didn't allow a job coach, but they said, well, that's okay. If they want to be on your phone, we can have them be on the phone. So they propped the job coach up on on the ledge there, and we may do. So anything, that really
That's awesome.
We're going to try and make it work. And then of course the on-site training as well. And then also we do a little bit of tutoring services as well. We are working currently with someone who's getting ready to get their master's degree. they have to take their social work licensing exam, and they would like us to help with them taking the exam. You know, obviously we at Capabilities, we don't know the content of that. But, you know, we could still help them, like, hey, here's some study tactics. You know, let's sit down together. Let's open up the book. Let's read. Or, you know, let's do a virtual meeting and see what things are online that can help us take, you know, tutor for that as well. And then, like Liz and Gina said, we do have our summer youth program coming up as well. Great for students, I'm guessing probably around this age, because it gives them that work experience. They're able to get their foot in the door somewhere. They're able to practice work skills, build their resume. You know, I think what's one of my favorite programs that we have is our summer youth program. So, so we'll be kind of gearing up for that here this summer as well.
Oh gosh, this is great information, Hope. Thank you so much for all the great information. I know just in the chat box, Patty was asking
Yes.
everybody that's speaking tonight to add your website, or if there's any PowerPoints or videos or your email address, please feel free to add that in there. We also had another chat comment from Mary McKee, just saying that I think her son had spent some time with Capabilities. He had worked with Capabilities since 2012 and he's had great success working with you guys. So thanks for sharing that, Mary.
Great. I'll put the my email address in here, and then I'll go ahead and put our website in there as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Hope. And we're going to start it off next with our last presenter tonight, which is going to be Miss Melinda Baker. So I'm going to let you take it away with your introduction and share your information with us.
Well, good evening, everyone. As Andrea noted, my name is Melinda Baker. I'm also known as Mindy Baker. I entered the vocational rehabilitation field in 1994, so I guess that makes it about 29 years now. And I've worked at various agencies. I worked with Liz over at Goodwill and Andrea over at Goodwill. I worked at Easter Seals in Cincinnati, and now I'm at United Rehabilitation Services, which is what I want to talk to you all about tonight. I wanted to give you a general overview of what our agency offers, and then speak to employment services. So I am going to share my screen, and hopefully I can do all this right. So here. Okay. How am I doing so far?
You're doing fantastic, Mindy. Thank you.
I'm going to see if I can start the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so United Rehabilitation Services of Greater Dayton. We're also known as having our main building at the Charles D. Berry Center. We are located at the corner of Old Troy Pike and Needmore Road, and we have a variety of services that we offer. We started out as United Cerebral Palsy way back in 1956. And so we were started by a mom who wanted to develop some resources for her daughter. And so they started the agency focusing on serving individuals with cerebral palsy. And then over the years, we have expanded to cover the entire spectrum of disability services. In 1999, the organization became known as United Rehabilitation Services. Our mission, of course, is like most of the missions of the providers that are here tonight. We are here to enhance the quality of life for children, well, for our agency, children and adults with disabilities or other special needs. We serve individuals as young as 6 weeks of age, and then we go all the way up to what I call the twilight years. We serve infants and children. We have a 5-star rated early childhood education and school age program. We have daycare programs. We have on-site nursing and therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and of course, the star of the show is employment services, right? We have a couple of things that do make us unique in all of the services that we offer, and that is our staff to child ratio. We also have nurses on site. Our provider for childcare, for school age, we serve individuals from the age of 6 to 17 in those particular programs. Our on-site PTs and OTs, we also have speech therapists. And we have the coolest thing ever. I'm always walking by the window. They have the aquatic therapy program where they get in this giant pool that's inside and they work to strengthen the muscles of the individuals that they're serving. Unemployment services, we have a variety of services that we can offer depending on, you know, kind of where your child is in deciding what they want to do. If they are someone that has never worked before and they have no idea what direction they want to go in, we can do a variety of different things. We can sit down and do an intake interview where we will ask a lot of questions and get some really good ideas of a good direction we can go in. We can sit down and do some career exploration where we talk about different occupations. But my experience has been that, especially with younger folks, the best way for them to make good decisions is to go and experience the different work environments. And you can do that in a various and sundry ways. You can go out to the employers and hang out and ask questions, which would be our career exploration program, or they can go in and actually be a worker there for a week or two and they earn a little paycheck and everything. We would accompany them, have a job coach. We kind of call them their wing person or their on-the-job trainer. Go with them, and in that role, they're not only being a job coach, but they're also assessing their potential to perform independently in that position. We can offer work adjustment services where you would spend an extended amount of time in that type of environment, maybe a month or so, and see if over time the individual is learning and kind of getting into the groove and picking up speed and getting better at their work duties. And we have Summer Youth Work Experience is another really good program that we can start very early in the high school process. It doesn't have to wait until the very end. We can accept individuals as young as 14. So that's typically after their freshman year, that summertime, where they want to, you know, take some time to get geared up for this big old transition that happens when they are getting ready to graduate. Over each summer, they gain a little bit more experience, they gain a little bit more confidence, and then when it is time to transition out of high school, it's not quite as a scary experience. So Summer Youth Work Experience is a really, really good program as well. We have something called URS Academy, which is a program designed for individuals who have graduated high school or they're getting ready to graduate high school, but they are not quite ready for competitive employment. And competitive employment is something that is important to know what that means also, because that is the goal for the individuals that come through Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. They work to get individuals into jobs. They do provide job coaching for a period of time, but the goal is to have that individual eventually be able to perform the job by themselves. So URS Academy is an opportunity to work on those soft skills that are needed to communicate effectively with coworkers and supervisors and to be successful in the workforce. And sometimes individuals need a little bit more time. The goal of URS Academy is within a year's time or so, it can be extended, to kind of get to that point where they're ready to start looking at competitive employment or going out into the world of work through the process of having a job coach for a short period of time. Short is relative, but eventually leading up to that goal of being able to do it on their own. Project Search is for our individuals that might be out in Clark County. We do tend to center our services in Montgomery and Greene and Clark County. We do occasionally go up into Miami County, and we're hoping we can go down into Warren County here shortly to provide more and more services to the south. But Project Search is located out in Clark County at the Springfield Regional Medical Center, and it is a unique entity where a group of 7 to 8 individuals spend a 9-month period going through different rotations and learning different parts of the hospital while simultaneously learning all those soft skills too that are important to be successful in the world of work. But it's contained in that little environment there at the hospital where they have job coaches that are designated specifically for that purpose. They stay with them through that 9-month period, and then they help support them when they transition out into the world of work as well. Let's see. Oh, of course, we offer job development services. All of our job developers are certified in supported employment, and they are awesome. They provide job seeking skills training while they're doing the job development. So they work with individuals on, like we talked about earlier, what to say in an interview, what not to say, and go through all the steps that you need to know to be able to get your application in, follow up on applications, go and visit employers, all of that. Of course, we have job coaching services as well. And then I have this general term, job retention services, and we've already spoken quite a bit to the follow along services. OD offers a little bit of retention services as well, but we are a Medicaid waiver certified provider so that we can do the long-term follow along as well. So why choose URS? We are an accredited employment. We have accredited employment programs through the Commission on Accreditation of Rehab Facilities. And that's the big bad agency that goes around to all of the providers and make sure that we are dotting all of our I's, crossing all of our T's, and providing the best possible services. We are also a certified career services Medicaid waiver provider, like I mentioned. And we have all of our job development staff with that supported employment credential. And we also have an award-winning job coach on staff. One of our individuals that works out at the Project Search program won the Job Coach of the Year from the Ohio Provider Resources Association. And that was just one job coach throughout the entire state of Ohio that got that award. And we were super proud of our EJ for that. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that we are doing in 2023, just as some fun fundraisers. We have a bike tour. We have our rubber duck regatta. You may have heard or seen the ducks all over the Dayton area. We also have a golf scramble, and we have Barstool opens all the time. And of course, our annual telethon is December 3rd on Channel 2. We hope you'll tune into that. One of the things that I also wanted to do was invite anyone and everyone who wants to join us for our upcoming tours. And that is one of the things that I always offer to the folks that give me a call, because coming into United Rehabilitation Services, the services that you see might not be the employment services. You might come in and see the kids, or you might see our older adults and day services, because those are our facility-based services. But coming in and going through a tour, you really get a feel for what is URS, the people that work there, our philosophy and our approach. So it's even though our employment services are community-based, the tours are often a lot of fun for people anyway. And we have a breakfast tour coming up on April 19th and a lunch one on May 16th. And I have the website right here. You can check it out, or you can also contact me as well. I can get you signed up for a tour. You can meet Dennis, who's right there. He's our CEO. And then you can also.
Mindy, I have a really quick question. Those
Yeah.
two breakfasts, and I know it's a way to look at URS, facilities and everything, but if a parent would want to stop by that breakfast, ask questions about your employment services area, would somebody from URS be on hand to answer some of those questions in that particular area?
During the tours, you mean?
During the breakfast tours?
Absolutely. I'll be right there.
Okay. That's what I
Yes.
need to know. Thank you, Mindy.
Yep. You can also scan our QR code in your phone and get all kinds of information about URS that way too. And I think that's it. Now, how do I go back? That's the question. That it?
Probably hit escape
You hit escape?
if to get out of your presentation, and then you can just hit stop share at the bottom or the
Oh,
beginning
there
of
it
your,
is. I
yeah,
see it.
there you
Aha.
go.
Ta-da. I did it.
I'm pointing at the screen, it's like, but it's don't you love it?
Oh gosh. Well,
I
thank you,
see
Mindy,
a
so
question
much.
here. Let me
What did
look
you
here.
say?
I wanted to I'm looking over to the side in the chat and I see a couple of questions.
Great. I was unable to see those.
Okay, good.
Let's see here when you were speaking. So let's see here. Okay. It looks like we have a question. Could you elaborate a little bit on the summer youth programs?
Yes, summer
Start with
youth.
you.
And like Liz indicated, that starts up here in a few weeks. The first one there's 2 sessions, they're 5 weeks long. And the first one starts at the end of May. The second one starts at the beginning of July. And we have several groups of students that are all throughout Greene, Clark, and Montgomery County. We have designated different areas such as Rural King, and we have Firehouse Subs, and we have Reed Golf Course, and we have Beaver Creek Golf Course, and there's some others as well. And you can pick and choose kind of where you would like to go in terms of your first priority, second priority, and third priority, I believe is the way they have it set up. OOD is kind of orchestrating the distribution of the students. So during that time, students go in and they learn how to perform the different work duties according to the site that they're at. If you're an outdoorsy person and you like to work at the golf course and do landscaping, mowing the lawn, painting, those types of things, then that's where you can go do that. If you want to look at food service at Firehouse Subs, you can do the food preparation, cleaning of the tables, wiping down the windows and all of that. So it's an opportunity to learn not just the work tasks themselves, but again, communication and teamwork and camaraderie and following supervision, accepting constructive criticism, which is kind of new for some folks, and then learning how to increase your work pace and increase your work quality. It's just a really rich, good learning experience because the groups are small and they have an instructor or a job coach right there with them at all times. And it is for a 5-week period, like I said, so it doesn't take up the whole summer, but it is long enough to get over the learning curve for most folks for them to see whether or not there's potential for that type of work.
Thank you, Mindy. I appreciate you that. I think right now, first of all, I thank all the guest speakers tonight, starting with Hope and Gina and Liz and Mindy, a lot of great information. So right now, I am going to open the floor to Dave Sullivan with OOD if he wants to make any statements, and then I can kind of monitor that box. I'm guessing right now would be a good time to questions and just letting some different people. Okay,
So-
great. So Dave, I'll let you go ahead and talk, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Yeah, so you heard a lot about the great array of services that can be provided. Those summer youth work experiences that these providers provide are a great way for your student to get some experience working and learn about the world of work. And then there are those core vocational rehabilitation services of job development, which is to help them get a job, and job coaching to help them learn it. And then retention to just check in to make sure things are okay as they become stable on that job. I did want to say a little bit about how this all gets started. And it probably varies to some degree by school. And there's kind of some options in terms of how it gets started. So we have a counselor connected with almost every school in Montgomery County and surrounding counties. And they're working with the teachers, and they're working with transition coordinators and encouraging those schools to refer people to us. And so that's typically how it starts. So if you have a student with a disability, and especially freshman, sophomore, or even beyond years, and they haven't been connected to our services, I would first probably ask the transition coordinator at the school or the main teacher working with them, how do we get connected with these services? And the reason I say start with them first is because, they know those students, and in most cases they know us. And so there might be a reason that they've held off. Or it might be that they just have so many students they haven't been able to refer yet, or whatever. But that would be one place to start. But if you haven't got anywhere with that, or you just want to get going with us, there's a couple of ways to go about that. So we have a phone number that I can add to the chat, general phone number. It's 937 331-5000. I paused for a second. It's been so long since I've had to give that number out, but that is the correct number. And you can ask to speak with an intake person, and they will help you get connected with a counselor. You can also go to oodworks.com, and you can apply for services online. And the key is to let whoever you talk to, or if you're doing it online, you can enter it there. Let us know what school you're connected with, because then they will connect you to the right counselor that's working with that school. The counselor will then work with that person. Everybody that we serve has to be eligible for services. In order to be eligible, they have to have a disability that significantly impacts their ability to get or keep employment. Don't make that decision yourself, whether or not you think your student's eligible for our services. It does not happen very often. In fact, I can't even think of an incident where we didn't make somebody eligible. Most students that are on and IEP, and even a 504 are usually going to be eligible for our services. Once they are, the counselor will work with them to identify their needs and develop what's called an individual plan of employment to assist them with this path towards employment. That will include a job goal and the services, and then the counselor will work with them to choose which service provider. So that's when they might have you get in contact with these ladies here or other providers that aren't on the call tonight, so you can really make a decision about what's going to work best for you. When that plan is finalized, then the counselor can refer your student for services and get things going from there. Just a couple more quick things. We also have, and some of them touched on this, what's called pre-employment transition services. And these are these are services that could be provided to transition youth from 14 on up to 21, not yet 22, that really introduce them to the world of work. And we have a program where we can actually provide these services to students that are not yet ready for a full open VR case with OOD. And so it might be the case that once you kind of start this process, a decision is made that probably this student is not ready for that full open case, but maybe could do some of these more introductory kinds of services. And the schools, again, can help make that decision. The schools can actually refer for those services. So keep that in mind. And don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, because I know it can be so confusing. I see that Patty added our phone number, and the OOD website, she gave actually a better link than what I gave earlier, because that the link she gave, I believe, is the one that is that the it's the OOD Works one, right?
Yeah, it took me, when I typed in the oodworks.com, it took me to that page, and that was the full, it has all the information, the full website page of it. Yeah.
I'm gonna put, so that's a really good one. And then I'm gonna put one more link, and it's for individuals with disabilities, and it has a lot of stuff on there about transition youth, and that might be helpful as well.
Hey, Dave, I just have a question. Do you know, is there anything on your website that when parents are linking up with counselors and talking about future services, pre-eds or job development, or, maybe driving or something with capabilities, do you have a website that parents or guardians could look at the grade cards of all the providers and all the things they provide?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So with the link that I just provided, that website will have a lot of general information about services. On the right-hand side, there's a button for search for provider. And when you click on that, you can either type a specific provider in, or you can search by the type of service that you're interested in or service location. And I'd probably start, unless you're pretty familiar with our services already, just kind of perusing some of those transition services, and then look at providers. But a counselor is going to help you navigate those sites as well. And one of the things I want to add too is that services are really individualized to the person we're working with. So you know, as you have a student in school, you might talk to other parents and you realize that they're getting different services and things like that. And that's because we really try to individualize to meet the needs of that particular student. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dave. Thanks for adding that on there too, because you're very correct in what you just said.
Sure.
Any questions in the chat box? Is there any type of discussion anybody would like to talk about, or is there, Patty, is there anything you would like to bring up or talk about, or?
Yeah, there was a question, but I'm gonna just touch on a few points that I heard, like with capabilities, mentioned the driving test. For those parents in here considering that or looking at that, we had an evaluation done when our son was getting ready to drive. They did the evaluation. Can they drive? Can they not drive? You know, kind of that process. Now, it's not a fast process getting the driver's license. Not for us, it wasn't. And some maybe it's a little faster. I mean, his temps, he had to renew. It was a year. He was with his temps. Still had to renew it. Took his first test, passed the written, but then he failed part of the driving test. But the driver, you know, with capabilities, they said that, you know, they didn't go in with the test during the test, but they got the results of the test so they could work on the weak spots. From the time that we got our temps to the time he actually started driving. And then we still rode around with him for like another 2 years. I mean, it was like a 3-year process, really, 3-something year till we felt comfortable of him driving himself down, you know, to work or whatever. But it was a process, just to let you know that that process is not quick. It's different for every individual. As they have mentioned several times, individuals are all different. The interview process, and we only have a handful of providers here. When you go to that, I put the OOD link in there of the resort. You'll get overwhelmed by all the providers there are that are available. Like and like Dave said, you know, work through your school, work through your county board, and just help to determine, you know, who works well with your individual, or who may work, you know, who may be, depending on what they want to do, where they want to go, and where they're located. I think, oh, and I also want to know, there was a question on the summer youth camps, and we'll be getting to that in another session. We do have a camp session later in this month, and OOD will be talking about some of their camps that they were talking about. And I know Andrea will be talking about a camp that they offer, and so will a career camp, and Greene County will be talking about their career camp. So I just
think we also have, Patty, don't we also somebody be talking about camp 2?
What was that last part?
Hold on, who all do we have that night about summer camp?
Oh, we have quite a list. So we wanted to make sure we covered, we have the summer youth camps, you know, like in the sense of a career camp. We have OOD, and of course I mentioned Montgomery County and Greene County, they're speaking. Then we also have a group called Capernaum, which is it's just an individual, it's a faith-based camp, but they have fun. It's a fun camp. We have Good Works coming to speak. And I just was looking at the list, and there's another one. I'll come to me here in a minute. I don't have the list in front of me, but we have, you know, like 4 or 5 camps that are going to be offered that we're going to be interviewing. Plus, I have several resources that have, like, from State Support Team 10, they have a catalog of camps, as well as I have another catalog. So we'll be sharing all that information that night. But I wanted to be sure that everybody was aware that we'll be revisiting that. But there was a question out there. Hold on, let me find it again. I wanted to make sure that we got to all the questions. And I guess this is for whoever wants to jump in. Carolyn had asked, are any of you having trouble recruiting and retaining staff? at this time?
Well, I can jump in on that. We at Matrix, we don't have difficulty retaining staff because Matrix is actually a beautiful place to work and our employers treat us really well. So people tend to stay when they come to Matrix, but it is hard to recruit staff. I mean, I think anywhere you go, you go to a restaurant and there's hardly any servers that are available. It's kind of just a strange time in terms of employment with being able to recruit anywhere. So that can be a little bit difficult. But usually when we get a staff, we keep a staff, and we also work really well together as an entire team so that if something goes on, because I think sometimes parents get nervous about that because they wonder, like, is my person going to be shifted around from person to person, or are they going to have, 9 different job coaches coming to the work site? We try not to do that if we can help it. We try to have it be more streamlined, but we do have other staff that can help out so that if a coach gets sick or something, we can send somebody else in their place. And I'm quite sure that the rest of the folks on this call, providers, do that same thing as well. So it can be a little bit tricky with recruiting, especially depending upon what area. But for us, once we get somebody, we treat them nicely and they like to stay with us. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else want to input anything on that question?
I can pipe in a little bit. I know with job coaching, that's a tricky category to keep completely full because with job coaching, the hours tend to be all over the clock, evenings, weekends, and that type of thing. So it really is a unique kind of position. Sometimes it's better filled by folks that have they're students or they're retired, or they have that flexibility. They don't have families necessarily that they have to be home for, cook dinner for, and those types of things. So with job coaching, it does tend to be a bit of a challenge. But we're finding that we're learning, how to attract those folks and to put the position together so that it is doable for folks. It is hard to find a full-time job coach. It tends to work better as a part-time position. That's been our experience.
And also, I would say if anyone on this call knows somebody who wants to do some weekend work or some evening hour work, or maybe they're retired or they're a college student and they are interested in getting started, the job coaching position is a beautiful, beautiful entry level position to get into rehab. It's where I started my career and it's a lovely thing to do. So if you have somebody, you'll see my number in that chat right there. You just call me right on up and tell me who that person is, and I will talk to them and see if they are interested in doing this. It's also a beautiful position for someone who is recently graduating, maybe with like a psychology degree or a sociology degree or any social service degree where they're wanting to get their feet wet and get some experience.
One question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just call my number 216-973-9046 and I will talk to your person and we can see what we could do. Also, I've recently been talking to a couple of college students just to help them understand a little bit more about voc rehab, because it is a little bit different, and most of the colleges and universities will have, social work, psychology, sociology, but the voc rehab part of it is a little bit different. So I have been working with a couple of college age students that are trying to get a little information and exposure as to what happens in social services in general and what goes on with rehab. So if you have anyone that's interested and needs someone to talk to them about that a little bit, I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you.
Tina.
I just wanted to double check. We have several counties. We have some I know some of you mentioned Dayton, Montgomery counties. Is there anybody that services, and I think I know which ones, but is there anyone that services, just to be clear, like further in the Southwest, like say like Butler, Hamilton, Warren counties? Okay. I'm thinking capabilities. You guys cover a lot too, right?
We have a Cincinnati office.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, like I said, we have 12, 13 different offices throughout the state of Ohio. So we pretty much cover the whole state.
Yeah, we do as well. We are across the state as well. Mhm.
And I think Goodwill does as well too, correct?
We do, am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay. We do part of Butler and Warren, not Hamilton, but there is a Goodwill in Cincinnati that should cover those areas.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the parents or whoever's on knows that, I mean, these guys are, it's not just in the location of 1 or 2 counties. They are spread out. They have offices in other areas too. So if you're from a different county, look at their website, or, you can just inquire about that depending on where you're from.
Yeah, so we do cover 23 counties.
Yeah, great. That's always helpful to know. I also wanted to make a note too. We also use the job coaches, like from our provider. Also, when our son went for a job, I'm not sure how many times your individuals have run into this. Like, I think Walmart was one, and I know Best Buy was another. But they have these modules that you had to do. And I think it was Best Buy. There was like 54 modules like before he started his job. And our job coach sat with him. They allowed him to have them sit with him during these modules. Before he got onto the floor, he had to go through, but it was a lot of reading and and they helped him get through because it was a lot. I think it took him a week to get through them.
We're
currently
doing that with someone right now at a Kroger.
And
So
there's quite a few companies that have those modules that you need to do. I guess they call it like, it's part of the onboarding where they want to teach safety, and they go over all these things that the person is meant to learn in order to do that job. And it is, I'm going to have to go with just darn right agonizing. I mean, oh gosh, it's so long and it's tedious. And that is definitely something where I don't personally think there should be any employer that would be denying having a job coach do that, because that is a reasonable accommodation. And if your student needs help with that, either, one of us as a provider could help that employer understand how we can assist with that and get them through it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure parents that are on, or anybody that's on, that, you do come across some of these challenging areas. Anything from the driving to the modules to communication. I mean, that's what these job coaches are there to do. They're help you get through these situations. Is there any other questions, or Andrea, any other comments you want to, before we wind it down, because we are at a little past 7:30?
Yeah.
So, all right, if there's no other comments or questions, I think we got through all the questions in the chat box. Any parents on here, have anything else on their mind before we close up? Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I'm going to close the recording. If you can just stay on for a minute in case a parent didn't want to type in the chat box, that they can ask a question verbally. But I'm just going to close the recording real quick for right now. But I want to thank everybody for for coming, presenting, and giving all this great information about the provider, things that we need to know when we're looking for a provider, and who you are. And what you do. But I want to thank you all for coming. So 1 second while I close the recording.
I would reiterate that to Mindy, Liz, Hope, and Gina. Thanks for taking time out of your evening to be here and answer questions.
I second that too, David. Thanks again, Hope and Liz and Mindy and Gina. Great information. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us,
you.
guys.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.